Hey fan peeps, this is your podcast host Kunal here. I started this during the pandemic, and in this podcast I discuss my nerdy thoughts and hobbies with you, with the occasional special guest. From anime to Zeppelins, we talk about it all. Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today. Today I have a very good friend of mine that I've known for 10 years now.
Jeez.
Which is ridiculous. Congrats again to getting engaged.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
But
yeah.
literally, like, the moment I met you is when you met your partner. So it's kind of wacky. It's like a decade, and we're doing a podcast episode now. So this is Joe Kercher. Joe, say hello for everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you very much.
I'm a long-time listener, first-time podcaster with him on this episode.
Yes. Booyah. We just did an epic fist bump.
Hell yeah.
This episode's basically kind of an in memoriam appreciation for a guy named Kevin Conroy. And the reason for it is a bit twofold for me personally. Listeners of the podcast probably have noticed that for the past, 5-ish months, I've been kind of sporadic. I can't go into details about it, but essentially I had to leave a friend group, and it was a very, very messy leaving. And I can't really tell you what happened for my own personal reasons and whatnot, but that was very scarring because I'd known them since basically I was a teenager. Sometimes you get so used to permitting bullshit that sooner or later something happens and it just blows up in your face. So that sucks. And I was just getting really big headway out of it. And then November 10th this past year, I was with my brother, and he just kind of looks up at me at work and on a Friday and just goes hey, Kevin Conroy just died. And I couldn't believe it. We were doing the bills for our work, and I was just I can't believe it happened. I was so shook to my core, and I was really surprised how much it bothered me and affected me that day, and really I really only got truly back on my feet mentally from that after 2 weeks or so. It was a while. So really, really recently, honestly. But yeah, Joe, you wanna?
Yeah, no, it blew my mind. Kunal and many others had been texting me about it because I was such a Batman nerd. I'm the kind of guy who in college wore this Batman hoodie that had its own detachable cape to it, and I would just go to my classes in that all the time. And I had this bounce in my step or whatever, so it looked like I was the Cape Crusader bouncing down the street.
Literally on my phone, your contact pictures, you wearing the Batman pajamas.
I do have two sets.
In my friend group, he's the Batman guy that I was oh, I've seen a lot of Batman, and then I'm no, I haven't seen as much as Joe. So
I've got the blue and gray, and I've got the black and gray. Love them both.
And so immediately, we actually have some kind of wacky bat stories between the two of us, just in terms of sharing the medium, and sharing the bat-xperience. Yeah,
it's the bat-xperience.
Bat-xperience. It's the bat-xperience. That's what we're gonna go with.
But it was tough, honestly. I know. Reading that, I had to take a step back from where I was, and I believe I was just in my living room, just chilling, when all of a sudden I got the text, and I looked online, and it was a flooding of all these, line, Kevin Conroy has now passed, and it breaks your heart. I don't know. It's you've known this person for so long in his media and his art, and to not have that anymore, I don't know. I think it's been something that still weighs on me, even when I'm not thinking about it, His work was just very beautiful, and it was always something I would look forward to the next project he would be doing. And it's weird that there's only one more project now.
Yeah, it's going to be posthumous. It's going to be something that comes out while he's dead.
Yeah.
Which is so weird. Because it's going to give us that a feeling of oh, he's here, but he's not really here.
Yeah.
And that's going to be so weird. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. And then I just saw voice actor after voice actor after voice actor. I did not realize how beloved he was in the community. He was, every interview I saw with him was always so everyone was so happy to see him and everything. They were like, Steve Blum shout out because they had worked together on the Arkham games.
Yeah.
And he was like, big guy, big love, big voice or something, like huge heart, big voice. He just had like 3 big compliments for him. And there's this adorable picture of them hugging.
Aww.
Yeah, it was really cool to have Spike and Batman hugging.
Right?
Yeah, so that was so weird. And immediately afterwards, like I post like a social media thing for it. And of course you're in the background picture of it. And well, when I give the synopsis, we'll talk about that story up and coming. But we got to meet him in 2017, and when the guy took the photo, of course I see Joe in the background, and it's not even just one of them, but it's like the guy took repeated pictures, and you're in all of them.
Yes, I am always there.
Yeah, so I was like, I have to text Joe, and I have to do an episode because like I can't let this pass without doing an episode, essentially. Because, like you said, he starts in the medium that we know him. He'd done basically the entirety of our lives. So we're talking about Batman the Animated Series, yes. And then all the subsequent DC entertainment that comes after that in terms of the animated universe. I caught them first on Toonami / like Cartoon Network back in the day, and then it was such a big deal that as I grew up and I went to college, I realized how much of an impact that was when I would talk to other like comic book fans. So I was like, oh yeah, I totally grew up watching that. I'm like, oh, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the weird one for liking it.
You aren't alone for loving a man who dresses as a bat.
And punches people really hard in the head.
Just tuckers them out, though. We cannot emphasize enough, there is no murder on this podcast.
He's all sleepy.
They just get sleepy and they tucker out. And that's in every medium of Batman.
And they're sending you emails from a farm far away. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, please look up the college humor videos of Batman killing people. It's great. Anyhow, I'm going to give a pretty brief synopsis and then we'll get into the meat of stuff. So basically this is going to be more of an episode about like why we liked Kevin and his performance as opposed to just information, because that's something I'm trying to do a little bit more as we go forward. So basically, November 30th, 1955, he was born in New York. So like for those that don't know, I was actually born in New York, and my dad was actually born in 55. So when he passed, he was a year younger than my dad. In fact, no, he's the same age, younger by 6 months.
Wow. Which
is also part of the reason that it kind of really hit me, because that's kind of crazily close to home, I just realized right now. So it's a really tumultuous upbringing. It was not a very good home life. Had an alcoholic father. They were pretty impoverished. He mentioned in one of his interviews I was listening to, like, he suffered from very bad anxiety to the point where he got seizures. And it eventually went away or alleviated when a teacher reached out to him and saw that he had a brilliance about him and that he just really hadn't found the right place yet. And he was like, I think you should give acting a shot. And he did, and he fell in love with it. And then after that, he eventually gets into Juilliard on a full ride scholarship. I forgot to say this, but Joe is a thespian.
I've got a theater background.
That's right.
And I've always loved that aspect of acting itself. Yeah, that isn't easy to do, definitely.
Especially back in the end, too.
And you're about to say the roommates that he, the people that he ran into there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the names was Robin Williams.
Yeah, they were roommates.
Yeah.
He told a really,
roommates.
He told a really, sad but believable story about him. He said that he never turned it off. He was always on, except for one night when he, broke up with his girlfriend and just started bawling. And a 17-year-old Kevin Conroy holds him and then puts him to bed. Literally put him in the covers. And they never talked about it. And
wow. I had no idea about that.
It was wild. I when I heard the story, I couldn't believe it. I did, but it was still a shock. And it gives me more context to Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Who's another huge influence on our life.
Absolutely. Flubber. Just that one. No, I love that.
I've actually seen that movie way too many times.
I don't know why. It sometimes it always comes up, even when you don't think about it for a long time.
I haven't literally not seen that movie for 15 years, and it's still in my head.
The lesson of that movie is, of course, chill with your family more so than your green, gooey creation.
And Will Wheaton does a really good asshole. 100%. Like, no matter what he's in, he should be an asshole. Great guy in real life, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
We're getting way off track.
Yeah.
All right, bringing it back into the synopsis. He had a bunch of like Christopher Reeves was in his social circle. Not, I don't know how terribly close, but close enough that he saw him.
Yeah.
Then he does like small film, theater, and television. There's a wacky story of him fighting a guy on stage. I don't know if you've heard about this.
Not stage combat, or
No, this wasn't part of the play, but he had been pissed off with him so much. Actually, we'll talk about that, I think, a little later, but
at least, that acting aspect, the theatrical acting, I think is what a really great way that helped ground his performances in the later stuff of his Batman the Animated Series. I was looking at that earlier today, and I'm thinking, you really could do this like, the golden age of Hollywood with how you could direct these scenes. Like, it all seemed very practical.
Definitely.
I mean, I know it's supposed to be kind of like that futuristic 50s,
It's kind of you don't know what decade it is in that show. And we'll get back to that in just a sec. But yeah, he was working with a guy who was, I don't remember his name. Quite frankly, I don't care. But essentially, he pissed him off, and he pissed off other people so much that he and Conroy got into a fight, like a physical fight during the stage, like on the stage. And what was kind of goofy is that they kept on saying the lines. So they're like, just imagine like they're doing like Hamlet or something. And he's like, to be or not to be. And like someone punches you right in the face. He's like, York, though I knew him. And they're just going back and forth. And then Conroy was like, I'm done. I'm ruined. And someone came up to him afterwards and was like, that was brilliant. And he's like, oh, thanks, man. It was a while. The stories I've found out researching him were ridiculous. I digress. And thanks for staying on the ride with me. So then in 91, he gets a reach out to do a voice acting role. That feels very young at the time. It was not very developed. Today, it's a completely different world. So essentially, he does that for 31 years, and 90% of the time, he is voicing Batman. Multiple voice actors have said, like, you could not really think of Batman without thinking of Kevin Conroy. People who grew up, Kevin Smith's like, every time I read comics, I would hear his voice saying it. And then like in 2017, there were two like really weird nerds that saw him and Nightwing's voice actor in Wizard World back in 2017. Those are the people talking on this podcast today. Then 5 years later, unfortunately, about a month ago, is when he passes away from cancer. Mm-hmm. So that was a somewhat brief synopsis on what his life was. But yeah, so today was like, I wanted to start off as like, why was he so beloved?
When I thought about what made his Batman so successful or so enduring in our hearts, I started with Batman the Animated Series, and the first episode that really comes to mind for me is Heart of Ice. We see a Mr. Freeze who has lost everything, has been turned into a cold, uncaring machine, and we see him shoot while trying to, aim for Batman. He shoots one of his minions and ices off his legs.
Oh my god, yeah. And like he has to make the choice of like, do I pursue him or do I, save this guy's life who tried to kill me?
And he has to make that emotional choice.
Yeah.
And I think that was so cool for a kid show to show human dignity and kindness to a minion that would have just shot at him.
Literally, yeah.
He brings him to the Batcave and actually utilizes his high-tech equipment to try and, keep him going or to, maybe heal him in some way, shape, or form.
And this guy could very well have come back on the street the next day and done the same thing.
Right.
Just the level of just empathy that's coming from a guy who... It's such an interesting dynamic of he's so flawed, and yes, he does have a rule of no killing people, but he really, really wants the world to be a better place. Mm-hmm. I don't think he knows how to do that, though.
Yeah, I'd say the methodology of the asylums and the police force and in this weird 50s futuristic world, it's not the best methodology. I'm not even sure what right answer there is in that.
I think that's just still the big debate right now.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you
and I don't know, it kind of gets you into like maybe existentialist philosophy a little bit, where it's like, okay, look, the world is this dark, crazy, chaotic place, but I'm going to live by my values, and I'm going to stick to that because that's something that I can make sense out of. And I think Batman does that to a T.
Oh, totally. And that's what's so attractive about him.
Yeah.
That's what's so admirable about him, is like no matter what, like he never gives up, and that's a line he says repeatedly. He's like, I don't care what it is, I don't care what the stakes are, I am not going to stop doing what I can, and that is something that is really interesting.
And even after, like, you know, he defeats Mr. Freeze and figures out that the guy who helped create that problem was not so good of a person, you know, he, you know, looks back at the very end of the episode. You see him looking on empathetically or sympathetically to Mr. Freeze's plight. Like, you know, he was truly a man who cared so much about his wife. And he lost so much in that process, and maybe in the quest for vengeance. And it's weird because it kind of feels like this dark reflection of what could be if you don't find that balance in your life.
I agree completely. Like, at least Bruce had someone else to care for him. He had
Alfred.
He had resources that he could turn to.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't solve the problem, but it also didn't torpedo it completely either.
Yeah, I would say, like, that basic human compassion, I think, is what, from that episode and multiple other episodes, really do shine with that, where we see him caring for the villains that are in there, makes it so unique for a kid's superhero show. That's nuance, that's complexity, and we're all complex individuals.
Very much so, and that's what I love about this the most, is because of his Juilliard background, because of his ability to draw from acting instead of just being like, time and time again we bring on this podcast, video games, animation, etc., is not just for children. Like, it's another medium, and it's another medium where we can tell stories. And because he had this acting background, and there's a very famous story of him saying, like, coming to the booth and like doing it like the goofy Adam West, and Bruce Timm was like, and Andrew and Romano were like, no, don't do that. We're going for a different tone. We're going closer to the comics. It's actually a goofy thing that Bruce Timm said to him. He's like, you didn't read comics growing up? He's like, no, I didn't read comics growing up. I was like, really? Why? And I was like, dude, I was at Juilliard for years, man. Leave me alone. Like,
sorry, I was cool.
But because he did that, they were able to bring in all-star cast members. I mean, one of them was even like a Star Trek captain, Catherine Janeway. I forgot her real name right now. But they had a very high caliber of actors and actresses that came through those booths, most notably Mark Hamill.
Yes.
If you remember him, he was a guy named Luke in Star Wars, that movie that came out in the 70s.
You might have missed it, honestly.
It was better when you catch it on streaming, and you never know. But because of that, and the fact that they were able to work, like we said off air, you mentioned, I forgot about this, but the level of musical scores that were done by orchestras,
original songs, original scoring for almost every episode except maybe 2. Don't quote me on that, but at least I know, like, they really, that's a lot of effort per episode.
That's a lot of money. And I love how also, at least they did it for the animated series. I don't know how much they did it later on, and I think now it really depends on where they do it and what production is, etc., etc. But what I'm talking about is that they actually got everyone in the same room for times when they would do it, so it's almost like you're watching a play happen.
Yes.
Which I really, really like. Otherwise, you're stuck in kind of a booth where it's just like the size of, it's big enough for a person to be put into a coffin, and then you kind of just say your lines and move on.
Right.
Sometimes that does happen, but when you want a production that has, honestly, in my opinion, a better quality, and sure, like, money's an issue. I don't excuse that.
Yeah. But I agree, honestly. There's something to beauty about, blocking these scenes and going through the motions and how that informs you. And sometimes you'll notice, like, things about the character that you didn't originally think about when you were writing it out for yourself that come up in the moment, and it's beautiful. Oh,
yeah, totally. And I think there was a rule that Mark Hamill had. He's like, and they asked him to do the Joker. He would specifically ask, is Conroy doing it? He's like, then I'll sign up, no questions asked.
Oh.
Which I thought was just so sweet.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is really heartwarming. And he was pretty obviously crushed when this happened and everything. I don't think anyone knew he had cancer, at least like fan-wise. Which obviously you don't want to share that.
Understandable.
Yeah. There's also like a really, really There's a really nice story that he talks about for 9/11. Right after it happened, he really couldn't find a whole lot of work at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably have definitely heard the story.
I have, and I
Yeah.
love it.
It's really nice. And at least from the views that I see, he was such a kind person. And literally everyone who's worked with him had nothing but good things to say about him. Adored by the community, as I said before. And so he called like the local soup kitchens or food donation area.
He volunteered for the local soup kitchens
That's what it
after
was.
after the tragedy of that 9/11, and some of them noticed who he was in the back.
Yeah. The way it goes is like basically they were all going around like, it's like, what do you do for a living? He's like, oh, I'm a doctor, I'm an architect, and this. He's like, oh no, I'm an actor. He's like, I'm a voice actor. He's like for what, commercials? He's like, and he's like, no, I mean like he was trying to be nonchalant, like not a dick about it. He's like, oh, I've always Batman, and some guy, a typical New York story, goes like, get the fuck out of here.
What you talking about? I'm walking here.
And he's like, no, I mean, I literally am, and I'm not going to try to impersonate it unless you want to. But
the line?
Yeah, I have it right here if you want.
Yeah, like he goes into the back area, and he says, I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. And it was fun.
Shivers.
They literally, it's quiet, right? Like,
yeah.
For a brief moment, and then uproarious applause.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's just, and everyone's like, oh, cool. Like, and then firefighters come out and are like, I love your stuff, man. It's like, and it was, it's a story he's told many times, and one that's just really heartwarming in a time that we really needed it as a people out in this country. And so I always love that story.
I do too, and I think that hits on like another important facet of Batman, and his version of it too is just how empowering the character was. Like, we needed this Batman, And
he was reaching adults at that time too,
yeah,
which is kind of amazing, honestly.
And I think it's just, despite all the chaos that's around you in the world, to have this character trying to still do good in the chaos.
Very much so.
Is, I think, what really gave people a great symbol of hope, even when it was so tough.
You're talking about a symbol of hope, and it makes me think of one of my next points. He had this really deep voice, this kind persona, and he's like 6'3", or he was like 6'3", or something.
He's taller than me, man.
Super,
I'm 6'2.5",
which is ridiculous, right?
That's the half part I have to bring up, because in the comics, he's technically canonically 6'2". So to live in your own life being a little bit taller than the comic Batman,
that you voice.
That's all I need. That's all I need to get through the day.
One day I'll be that height, but not now.
Drink your milk is all I can say.
I don't know if I can.
Oh no!
It makes my tummy feel weird.
Cut that part.
Now we're keeping that shit in. Unlike my body, but but like he had this very deep persona, kind persona, and it was almost like you're listening to another father figure the whole time, and that is why I think is so. It's another like really big feature for why he would be drawing into so many compassionate nerds who would love seeing him every week. One of the other reasons that is really just such a big, lovable reason for him is when he goes singing in the Justice League Unlimited episode.
God, I loved that. That
right?
was the sexiest Batman I have ever heard.
My God, right?
Like, what was that? Like a jazzy blues kind of like, rendition?
Yeah.
Because I know he likes to sing.
He has a whole website called Kevin Conroy Sings. There's like 7 songs.
I need to go look that up, honestly.
If you haven't done already, I did it when the night he died, and I was just crying. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. I was tearing up like tremendously.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's so much fun to listen to. Some of them are songs I think he wrote, or I just don't know them. Others are songs he's done covers for.
Right.
So it's just fun. It's just one website, one page, or primarily for those songs, and they're free to listen to. It's really, really good. And honestly, every time I saw an interview with him talking about that, someone just mentions it. not even asking him to sing it, and he'll break out into singing it. So if you go on YouTube, you'll find a bunch of renditions of that too.
Oh, I love that so much. He was
Yeah.
such a giver, and he always did his like line, that every time when a fan asked, he never stopped. And I just thought that was just so kind of him. So many people, it's like, yeah, you're a human being, sometimes you're tired, or
You go into the superstore.
You're busy, or
Yeah.
whatever, and you're confronted by these situations, and just with poise, grace, and enthusiasm, he constantly delivered
Every time. So those are the reasons I think that he was so beloved, essentially, by the community. And then I was wondering if we could get into like, what are some of your favorite memories?
Oh man, I mean, we'll definitely touch on when we actually met the man.
Yes, that was such a
but from
heartwarming
his
experience.
works, I have loved the video games. I really keep thinking about the Clayface episode.
Oh, that's a really good one.
And I hope that one sticks in my head.
Pun intended.
But not in like that mucky, weird way that Clayface is, in a more natural way that it sticks.
That's why I never forgot like the gangster from Batman, Daggett.
Yeah,
Daggett, like just such a fucking asshole.
You.
Like what got into your like what got into your probably like he takes the whole like if you haven't seen the episode, it's very good, very dark. He essentially is an actor that Basil Karlo gets his face smashed in a car accident. He uses experimental stuff. And Daggett,
it's like a cream thing or whatever. And,
it's not perfected yet.
Yeah, typical.
And right, that sounds like
hey, when that happens to me,
sounds like Gotham. And so Daggett just pours the whole damn thing down his mouth and turns him to the villain.
Yeah,
and I'm like, fuck you.
I like that episode. It sticks into my head. I've loved his Heart of Ice. That one's just so beautiful, and it kind of made me cry up as I was watching it again today.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. I love the episode with the woman who she is permanently stuck in the body of a child.
Yeah, she has some sort of like developmental disease, yeah.
And you just see her when she's firing in that fun house full of mirrors, and when she finally runs out of bullets, you just hear she's continuing to click with tears running down her eyes. And, Batman could have done anything because she is a criminal, and instead he kind of just offers a bit of like condolences, or he's just there for her in that moment. And I think that's just so beautiful. And at the end of the day, like, depending on what we believe in or what we've done, it's just, again, treating people with that basic humanity and empathy, and like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah. Sometimes even just saying that to somebody can really, really make a difference.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have the answer. I mean, I don't get it, but I understand it. To the level like she was in her 40s or late 50s, I think, at that point, but she still looked like she was 7 years old. And just imagine like making it. I've heard, I think I heard Gary Coleman talk about certain issues. He was a character back in the 70s. What you talking about, Willis? That's his famous line there. You kind of just get typecast in the worst ways. Mm-hmm. Like you physically can't do anything about it, which is so unfortunate.
It's so limiting too.
Very much so.
There's so many different projects you want to pursue.
Peter
you kind of want
Dinklage.
to hit the whole spectrum of cruel things.
Mm-hmm.
And because of some physical aspect about yourself, or because they saw you do one thing really well, that's all they ever want to see in you. And it's a very tough situation to be boxed in like that. Mm. When your whole field is about creativity and the freedom of that expression.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
But people want to cash in on what's already cashed in, which is it's such a detriment to what we could be missing by just doing reboots constantly, and doing the same thing over and over. So that's my thoughts on it, though.
And I mean, that goes even back to like what beware the gray ghost.
I was just going to bring it up.
That, this is perfect thinking on that end. Like,
beautiful.
Here's a man who this is Adam West clearly voicing the gray ghost, or the actor playing the gray ghost. I believe his name was like Silas or something.
Yeah, Silas.
Something with an S. But
there's a lot of Batman videos.
It's just like he's looking for work, and he's just like, sorry, man, you were really great as the ghost, and no, it's hard to find work. And, I think every actor kind of gets to that point where it's just like, or in Adam West's case, he was so prolific as Batman on the screen, and then the work dried up, and
right.
That was really tough for him too. And it's a weird cathartic thing to watch that.
It is, because like I know vaguely that he had a very like contentious relationship with some of his family, and then that fed into it as well. It gave him a really good sense of humor about it. That's something that's great about The Grey Ghost, is because the only place you can get money from it is from a really ardent fan.
Yeah.
and like,
by the way, if you're listening to this, yes, we will.
Yeah, we will.
Thank you, ardent fans.
Yes, please keep on supporting us. And then you find out like the biggest fan is who you're watching right now, which is Batman. He watched it with primarily with his father. I think his mother was watching it with him too, but he remembers it clearly with his father, and it laid the foundation for a lot of how the modus operandi for how he runs. I don't know if that's the right word.
His methodology.
His methodology for how he does Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is so insane, because it's always cool to see your heroes talk about their heroes.
Yes.
It's almost like you're seeing a grandparent influence for what you enjoy, which I think is always really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always thrown back by it because I think it was just a beautiful episode. I think, the acting was great. It was a fun episode too. But I think ultimately, they don't shy away from the humanity and these very difficult situations these characters have. And I don't know. I think that says a lot about why this show was so successful and why I think Batman has continued to endure in multiple different iterations since.
Oh, yeah.
It's because I think the groundwork was laid of this is a man doing the best he can, and he's doing so with love and compassion and empathy. And I think those are the projects where they understand Batman.
And doing a lot of research for it, I loved watching the animated series, Batman Beyond, Justice League Unlimited, etc.
Yeah.
Like I said before, or if I didn't, because of him, they built the entire animated DC universe. There would not be one without Kevin Conroy.
100% agree.
Yeah, because like, even if they're direct to DVD or direct to streaming movies that they were making, like, he always hit it out of the park. And there's been so many iterations of different stories of Batman, etc., etc. And without him, there would not be any groundwork for it. So we have a lot. He basically, in terms of like relating to today's world, it's like saying if Netflix never did the Daredevil show.
Yeah.
Or if they never did Iron Man. Both of those laid the foundation for respective TV and movie mediums.
100% agree, honestly. Like they were fundamental.
Absolutely.
To that.
Yeah.
And then from there, so much has just, it's like the next chain of the next chain of the next chain.
Right.
That's built on it in such beautiful and interesting ways.
And sure, if it wasn't them, it would have been someone else. No shit. But the fact of the matter is, like, there's such a level of appreciation for that when it happens to be them.
And, I think even if you had changed it up, I think there's still layers of nuance that would be missing within,
100%.
Exactly. It would be different. It would be its own thing, but it wouldn't be this nuanced thing that we've come to grow and love and just absolutely appreciate in the work that's been put out there.
My God, yeah. And I really love Batman, even though Nightwing is probably my dude, just because he takes everything he's learned and all the trauma he's had and lives his life, even though a ton of stuff happens to him, and tremendous stuff. But his trainer was Batman, and I always internalized a lot of like his tendencies and just like his demeanor and stuff like that. I appreciate it. I don't know if I internalized it, but I definitely appreciated it internally. I'll say that. All he needed was body, wits, and will. He was a polymath. He was a master combatant. He was a tactician. He's traveled the world. Just those people I've always been so interested in because they have so much knowledge and experience.
And it's a beautiful thing to look up to, right?
Yeah.
Explore, different cultures.
Yeah.
Travel when you can. That's learn what you can. Why not try and learn as much as you can, even if it doesn't have anything to do exactly with the job you're doing, or even if it's not an interest that you would normally be able to get to do in whatever area you are. It's kind of a beautiful thing to just explore it all. Why not?
Thanks, man. I take that as a compliment, so thank you. Yeah, I always thought it was just like really cool. Like he'd show an episode with he talked about his time in Japan when he had to pretend not to be able to fight in one episode. Like he gets like a huge black eye from it. He, Ra's al Ghul's out in Egypt. Like there's just, even when you're reading the comics for it, he's traveled all over the world for it. It does get kind of ridiculous sometimes where he can like speak every language, know every martial art, and like
what you can't do that too? Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I mean like that's sometimes where I'm like, okay, come on now, like this is like, okay, you can read ancient, like I'm sure this has happened, but it's like you can read ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs.
Yeah,
dude, what the fuck? Like, come on.
But he of course can't make a turkey. That's still Alfred's job.
Exactly. Or make I don't know how to make a sandwich.
Darks or whites? I don't see a difference. I'll just put it all in the laundry bin.
The animated series was such a classic. It became such a bedrock. And Jerry Romano and Bruce Timm were like the big people for that. And because of that, we've had like multiple things come out from their projects, including like the 2012 Ninja Turtles show, which is completely underrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a good show. They delve into the source material, but that's a whole different episode. I love, again, how we prefaced earlier. I was like, it was not just a show for kids. It was a show that had super dark themes, and even if you didn't understand it, you could feel it.
Right.
And that's what I could never illustrate it as well as probably close to what I can do now, and then what you've talked about as well. But
there's a replay value to that too, because when you come back to it, you're like, oh, I get this. This was a lot more vulnerable or dark than I imagined it was before. But I'm thankful you kind of got your toes in the water when you watched these very real situations unfold, even in a fictional world.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. Yeah, I actually, literally last night, with everything I talked about in the beginning, this is jumping fandoms, but I think it's important for the sake of your point. I was watching, basically Zuko's outcasted himself from the Fire Nation at this point. Now it's book 3, my favorite book in the entire series, because it's so quick and it's intense, and you get to see firebending finally.
Right.
And I understand in a deeper level what he means, like, of being kind of outcasted, and everything that he was indoctrinated with, he's questioning now. Not to that level for me, but
right.
But there are things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I understand this now to a level. It's amazing when a fandom does that for you. And just to switch back real quick, I love how Batman just seems so powerful, so cool, so knowledgeable, but yet at the same time, and Conroy said this in one of his quotes, he's like, I love playing him because he was a flawed human being. I see it now as like someone who in some ways gave up part of his humanity for the search of vengeance.
Yeah, or his like a future, so to speak. Like, he could have been anything with that wealth and resources and that mind and that discipline.
He could have like changed Gotham for the better.
And I think that was still his goal.
Yeah, but in a more productive, realistic...
yeah, and I mean, even if we go back to that Heart of Ice episode, I'm like, if you had vetted your company a little bit more from these assholes, you wouldn't have had a Mr. Freeze.
I mean...
and that's kind of like the oversight, because it's like, well, if I punch them out of crime, then of course I'm going to solve this, then maybe provide the resources necessary for them to continue.
I mean, concussions will change people. Literally.
Oh,
literally.
You can quote us on that.
You can quote us on that. 100%. It's trademarked. I loved the Mr. Freeze episodes because they always made his voice sound so robotic.
Yes.
And so, pun intended, chilling. And the Grey Ghost was a great one. We already talked about that. I love when he just straight up defeats an all-powerful android by just like realizing, oh, okay, you have our weaknesses too, and just like shoves a piece of kryptonite in his face, and the guy just crumbles right there. Like, also the whole point of like, you also carry a brick of kryptonite with you at all times.
Right, or like in the Heart of Ice episode, he's just got that glass helmet. It's not like reinforced glass. All Batman does is he gets his like thermometer of chicken noodle soup.
Oh yeah.
And smacks his like helmet, and it breaks off. He's like, the hot soup.
That bone broth, man, it'll get you.
Yeah, I don't know what he said, but I wish he had said like soup to meet you or some dumb line that would have ruined it.
I was gonna come up with a funny catchphrase, but I don't have one, so I'm just gonna go with that.
You've been chicken caboodle.
Oh
for the
my
soul.
God! Oh man.
This is why I don't write that stuff.
I feel like part of us wants to, though.
Absolutely.
He also just in the last episode or one of the last episodes of Justice League Unlimited, he backflips really well to avoid a god level villain.
Yeah, a Darkseid.
Darkseid, and
that Omega beam.
Omega beams, and like Darkseid even goes, "Wow, you're the only one to ever escape my Omega beams. You would be a worthy subordinate of mine." And Batman's like, "I'll pass, thanks," or something dumb like that. And I'm like, he had just an ability to capture the screen every time he was there.
That's a great lesson. Sometimes you need to say no to the evil corporation and or God,
even though you run one. So it's fine.
Well, yeah. You win some, you lose some.
I love the crossovers that he did with like Static Shock, because and Batman Beyond, the time travel episodes,
the Once and Future King or Thing.
I think, yeah.
Oh, so good.
It was really good. There's one episode. This is like a small detail, but in that same crossover with Static Shock in the time travel episode, and it's owned by Warner Brothers, so they could do this. But the Bat computer is just showing the Matrix, and there's some small things they did in the production of these later shows was so much fun. There's the Justice Lords episode,
yes,
the 2-parter.
I watched that so many times on YouTube in high school.
Yeah,
just the beautiful lines about like himself versus himself, Kevin Conroy versus
literally
Kevin Conroy, going, what
would Dad think about this?
Their banter in the cave, which kind of convinces our Batman.
Yeah.
Oh shit, maybe
too
he's
far.
right, because they're not doing enough, is what the first Batman thinks when he's in the cave and he drops a batarang.
Right.
And it's just like, I just don't want to live in a world where another 8-year-old kid ever has to worry about losing his parents to some punk with a gun. And then we see the flip where it's just like they're driving through. And he's like, curfew's been instated. And it's like, it's only, what, 7?
It's like
5?
There's still daylight. It looked
looked like 3 o'clock.
It looked like right after school. Like,
and he's like, they'd be so proud. Who? Mom and Dad.
And then you just see like the other universe Batman just kind of like shamefully turn and everything.
Just
he's like, yeah,
brilliant, because he can't rebuttal that.
He's like,
even he notices the fallacy in his logic.
So there's a part where like
so beautiful
in that same episode where like Flash, or I think it's his next episode, like Flash, I think it's right before what you were talking about, like Flash fools him into thinking that he's having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And he knocks him out and eventually gets out, and then as Flash is trying to, like, because he's the Flash, he tries every combination on the lock, and they go 91939, which is a callback to like when
Batman's first ever issue, 1939,
right,
in Detective Comics.
Exactly, it's in May, and what's kind of goofy is that they did that in a couple other movies, just on the whim, like you wouldn't know unless you were Joe.
100%. I love that. I love looking for that number in those movies.
There's so many little tidbits here and there that they do that, which I really appreciated. We can laugh at this now, I feel, but I feel like this was not funny when it happened. You know what I'm talking about?
What are you about to say?
So, this is when Trump got, like, when we were, so, like, you were, at the time, moving residences, and so I was like, oh, this is going to be the last time I hang out with, one of the last, this turned out to, thankfully, be wrong.
Yeah.
But, like, one of the last times I'll really be able to hang out with Joe one-on-one, so, like, and it was the night of the 2016 election.
My God.
And so we're like, oh, let's go get dinner, and we're out in Webster Groves, and we're like, oh, I'll just. So we were like, fuck watching the election. Like, we're just gonna watch Batman movies, and we did, and it was great.
It was the best choice that night.
It was a very good choice, and it was the best choice. And then like I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm just take a look online, and then it's like every time I checked, I'm like, there's like 20 more states. Like, we can.
No, there's 19. Oh, okay.
Like we can make it still. We can make it still. And then it's like, and then I've never felt more anxious in my life to where I felt like I was outside of my body. And I was like, hey Joe, you got any like wine and anything to drink?
And that line is never uttered by Kunal.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, like I I will have a drink once in like a random, but like I never like it's very true. Like I'm not a big drinker, and I'm like
that spoke to the level of shock.
Yeah,
and I was just like, yeah, that's and it was just more of like a listless, like
yeah, we did, and then like that was a rough night. That was a rough 4 years, but we're out. Yeah, we're
working on it.
Yeah,
I guess,
it's damage control. I really don't care if people don't like that, so it's okay. Politics,
me neither.
Yeah. Okay, so that was one that always like now I think you can also laugh at it too, just like the level of like absurdity. And we were watching like there was like a Scooby-Doo version too, right?
Oh my God, was that the old Scooby-Doo one where the Batman crossover?
I think so, yeah.
That was such a good one too.
There was like a rocket or something that was gonna blow up, or like we dug every animated movie that we hadn't seen for Batman, or that you had seen but liked, or something like that. And it was just a fun time. I was just like, okay. And then literally every time I look back, I'm like, no, it's okay. We got more states.
That was a doom scroll.
Oh God, it was so bad. I'll never forget. Like you looking at the news and someone saying that Canada's immigration website had crashed.
Oh,
I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, no, I do. I can't believe I like sort of just blocked that out for a bit.
I'm sorry, man.
Oh man,
I'm sorry. But so then that happens, and then 2017 happens, and this is a much lighter story. So I'd been out of college for about 2 years, and you had expressed interest in seeing because you I think you texted me like, "Hey, Conroy's coming to St. Louis." Yeah.
Wizard Con. Vroom, vroom, vroom. I mean, please add the special effects. I'm so sorry.
And I was like, yeah, I've been to a couple cons. I'd been to a couple in college, and so you were like, well, I've never been. I was like, oh, dude, it's gonna be great. We're gonna have a blast, and it's one of my favorite con memories. So I'm glad you got to come with me.
It was my one con I've ever done, and it was probably the best one ever. They had an impeccable lineup, like Evan Peters, who was just coming off of that fame from American Horror Story and his X-Men stuff.
Oh, okay.
As the Quicksilver.
Oh, yeah.
Wait. Yeah, that's it.
I think it was, yeah.
And you had the person who played Dexter's sister on Dexter, that show, also had walked past me at one point.
I think I remember that.
It was cool. But what takes the cake is, they were like 150 per, picture, or 200 if you want, an autograph, 300 if you want them to say your name out loud once.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my God, that's insane. I didn't bring nearly enough money for that.
Yeah.
Nor do I want to. But then we went into the lines for Kevin Conroy and Lauren Lester, who played Robin/Nightwing.
Yeah, did we do Lauren's first, I think?
No, that was second, I think.
That was second?
After I had done with the Conroy, then I went to Lauren, I believe.
Okay. Because we went at the same time for Conroy.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we were in line.
You were before me,
and
then I was next.
So like, what I told myself was like, I was like, Joe, does my breath smell? He's like, yes. I was like, okay, I have some cough drops. Let me use those. I wasn't coughing, but I just had some in my bag because I just gotten over a cold or something. I was like, okay, how about now? He's like, yeah, you're fine. I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks.
It wasn't. Just kidding.
Don't fuck me over, man. It was fine.
It was fine.
But like we were kids in a candy shop, and we were so excited to see him. And I was like, Kunal, don't fuck this up. You talk to famous people, and you always fuck it up, so don't fuck it up.
Were you doing that to yourself?
I was.
I was so giddy that the person who's just like, all right, and that's Kevin Conroy coming up, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not worthy. And she's like, it's okay.
I think I do remember
she's like
that.
Treating me like a child. I'm like, he's really fucking cool. And she's like, I get it.
I forgot about that.
And I'm literally losing my cool.
Oh my God. And so like I'm wearing my Red Hood t-shirt. I'll throw up some of these pictures when I do the postings, but like I'm wearing my Red Hood t-shirt and I'm going up there, and I was like, okay, keep it short, keep it sweet, get the picture, get out of there, Kunal, don't be weird. And so I get up there and I'm like, hey, and I didn't realize how fucking tall this guy is, man.
So tall.
Like, Jesus.
I wasn't expecting that either.
No. He had definitely been, like, I think you said he was a biker back in the day, so he kept in.
He does. He's like a cyclist. He likes to do that. He was very outdoorsy.
Very, very, like, in good shape. I was very, like, and he was at that time, so 5 years ago, so he was in late 50s, early 60s. 61-ish. And I was like, wow, he's in good shape. And I just want to say, hey, big fan of your stuff, Mr. Conroy, and like, he helped me get through some tough stuff when I was younger. And he actually says like, glad to see you got through it. And I like at that completely,
Aw.
it was really sweet. It threw me off temporarily, and I was like, oh, thank you. And I grew up seeing you. Thanks for voicing my childhood, and thank you. And he's like, oh yeah, no problem. And we took the picture, and of course Joe's in the background, like I said before, just kind of waiting, and because I like looking like lovingly as it's happening.
I think he asked you the question, are you a gamer?
Yeah.
Yeah, or you play video games?
Oh,
and you're like,
we
yeah.
did!
And it's just like, yeah, because I think you brought up that you like the games, and he's just like, we got a gamer on our hands or something like that.
Oh my God, I
Yeah.
completely forgot about that because I had gotten that shirt from GameStop.
I haven't forgotten that. That
Yeah.
was amazing. And
Oh my
and
God.
he made Kevin laugh because of that, I think. Or,
Oh my! You just unlocked so many core memories.
it
My
was
goodness.
a really wonderful con.
I think that threw me off too because I was like, I didn't expect you to say that because I had just beaten the Arkham games,
Yes.
so that's why I think it was still very fresh in my head. And yeah, I had gotten that shirt from GameStop. Holy shit, good memory.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, thank me. And he was super nice. And then I don't know if you remember this, but you had left your autograph there.
I did.
And
I totally forgot about it.
And then he's like, he's walking off, and he's like, Joe, and I'm like, I wave at him. I was like, I got you, and I was like, Joe, you forgot your autograph. You're like, oh shit, and you ran back and got it. And then he's like, he like kind of looked at us, and I was like, thank you. He's like, no problem. Like he literally took that, like going back to what you said earlier, he literally took the time to make sure that you had your stuff, and
yeah,
to make it
sweet,
and to goof off with me a little bit, and to throw this little nerd off. That was just really cool. And
I went up to him when it was my turn, and I was just like, oh man, I kind of wanted him to just like me. So I was just like, I really liked, because also my theater background, I really liked how you said the character was so Shakespearean. And he's like, yes, because there is a duality between them, that it feels like a Shakespearean character.
Yeah.
You've got the one self, which is the true self, and that was the Batman persona that he made the choice on. And then the other is the fake, which is the Bruce Wayne.
Right.
That was such an amazing choice, and even the voice change alone really helped with that. And even when the character was alone, he was speaking in his own Batman voice to himself. That's how he thought, because that's him.
Yeah.
And that was brilliant. Absolutely fucking brilliant.
They touch on that in one of the Batman Beyond episodes where he's like, I forgot who the villain was, but there was a moment where he's like, how did you know how'd you get out of the hallucination or whatever? He's like, well, I know I'm not insane. And everyone who's watching just goes, yeah. Totally. And he's like, and I don't call myself Bruce. And Terry goes, oh, really? Well, that's nice, but that's my name now. And Bruce goes, tell that to my subconscious. Also, like I wanted to mention this before I forgot. I didn't know he was part of the queer community.
No, I didn't either.
And I may have heard about it. We were talking this a little bit before off air, but like I think I heard about it after we met him, but I forgot about it, and then was reminded earlier this year because he released an article or something about that, and then shortly later, he passes, and I think he did that again just to, I don't know, maybe throw something out there. I'm not sure. But the reason I bring that up is to talk about his duality of going on, because he had to consistently, you're up in the 50s and 60s, you do not talk about that. It's hard enough today.
Yeah, it would be just so taboo.
Right. And especially growing up in a Catholic,
Irish Catholic
Catholic background.
Yeah, no.
Forget it. It's not happening. He had to just basically keep it to his vest the whole time, which is so, I'm sure he drew on part of that for the inspiration as well.
Yeah, it'd have to be isolating.
Yeah.
And just terribly frustrating.
Oh my God. And probably hearing just casual slurs and jokes being thrown around the office.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which really weren't jokes.
No, it was just hate.
It was just hate. That's a good way of putting it. Any other things you want to add, man?
I would have to say I did love that I tweeted him with my picture.
Super jealous of this.
And he liked it and responded back. It was great seeing you too, Joe. When I'd post like, I loved going like a year ago. That was so awesome. Probably one of my favorite responses from him. from a very kind man. And I was wearing my Nightwing shirt at the time.
You were.
So, but because I was like, I'm not worthy enough to wear a Batman hoodie or something for the GOAT.
Speaking of Nightwing, we met Lauren, and he was super nice too. We actually got to see Kevin Conroy's talk was the other day, so we went and saw Lauren's, and it was really cool. Actually, I gained a lot more respect for Nightwing, the voice actor, being that. And when I met him, I was wearing my Red Hood T-shirt, and I immediately went like, "Oh fuck, he's gonna give me shit for it." And he actually didn't. He was like, "Oh, that's a really cool shirt." Like he was like a super nice guy.
Oh, he was awesome. He wrote down on my autograph, it was like, "Great seeing you, Kercher," my last name, and I'm like, "That's awesome." It's personalized. I love it.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him about acting. He's like,
I was gonna say,
he's like, "Yeah, you probably want to hit up the coast. Either one will be better for you than stay in the Midwest."
I remember him giving you some advice.
I don't doubt that. If you want to go into this biz, definitely.
Definitely. Like, he was very sharing, very, very kind. He had a big old smile.
Oh, he was wonderful. He had a lot of energy.
Yeah.
I loved talking to him.
He was fun. I'm gonna close it out with some thoughts that I came up with, like, last night, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, please do.
Cool. So as I get older, I try to grow as much as I can. I try to be as dynamic as I can. And I start to see the character of Batman and their influence with the eyes I have at 30 years old. And that's the fact that he's like a flawed human being. And Kevin Conroy really brought that. As we said this many times in the episode today. At the same time, I can realize that he's someone who's trying to use their abilities to deal with pain. And there is a certain beauty to that. He has some admirable and amazing qualities, but there's also this great danger that holds him back from really exploring the full breadth of his humanity. Mm-hmm. Conroy really knew that, and that's why I think it gave such an indelible performance. That's why I think it honestly made me depressed for like a week or two, and why it made me shed tears, why it made me so emotional about it. And as I was preparing this episode, I really gave a lot more gravitas to that, and in a very roundabout way, I learned how to be more human than Batman writing this episode. Because of how Kevin Conroy delivered the whole experience. So I thought that was probably the coolest thing I can get out of this episode. And also, I'm glad that you got to be there with me for a lot of those bad adventures. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think my takeaway from this character that he did such a great job with is learn a large breadth of things that you can, really just expand your interests. Be there for others, even if they're, I guess, not saying enemy, but, or have been antagonistic. Treat them with the same human kindness and decency that you would have wanted. And I would say kindle that spark in others, especially those young kids that really look up to superheroes.
Yeah.
Kindle that sense of wonder, sense of creativity, and compassion in yourself and others. And I think that's probably the most beautiful aspect of his legacy that I look forward to, at least in my own way, being a part of that.
Yeah, and it is a bummer that he's no longer here, but the fact that he was here at all, I think really just makes it all that more awesome, honestly, which I know sounds kind of odd.
That's sort of the chaotic gift of life, which is just you're here for a moment, gone in a lifetime, but in that brief span, you can really touch a lot of hearts and minds.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting it. We're going to call it right there.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Kunal.
Anytime.
Have a great one, guys.
Take care. Hey, fan peeps. Thanks for listening, and I'd love any feedback you have for me. Please follow the Facebook page, They Need a Hobby, and follow us everywhere, social media-wise, under the handle @TNAHpod. That goes for Twitter and Instagram, and one of these days, I'll be super popular. That was nothing. Don't worry about that. Amita, cut that part out. We're going to start over.
Keep it in.
Okay. All right.